Good evening, members of the committee. This is the first meeting of the Constitution and Standards Committee for the Council. It is one committee that the Council determined that the committee should appoint its own chair, which is why I shall open the meeting for that purpose. But before I get there, members, can I do a call of who's present? And for that, can I ask you to turn on your turn on your video and then speak your name when I ask it. So, Councillor Cooke.
Yes, present. Good evening.
Councillor Cox.
Yes, present.
Councillor Gilchrist.
Yes, good evening, present, thank you.
Councillor Hayes.
Good evening, present.
Councillor Steve Hayes. Do apologise.
Okay.
And Councillor Paul Hayes.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Jones.
Good evening, present.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Robinson.
Good evening, present.
Councillor Jean Stapleton.
Yes, good evening, I'm here.
Councillor Steve Williams.
Good evening, present.
Councillor Janette Williamson.
Present.
And Councillor Wood.
Good evening, I'm present.
Thank you. And independent persons, I have Councillor Jones. Professor Jones. Do apologise. Professor Jones, could you turn on your video and just announce your presence, please?
Just see where the video is.
Oh, so there we are. Sorry, yes, I am here.
Thank you. And Mr. Kerr.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Are there any other independent persons here this evening? No. Thank you then, members. If I can go to the first item for this evening and invite nomination for chair for the remainder of this municipal year. Councillor Cooke.
Yes, thank you, Phil. Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Gilchrist as chair, as one of the longest serving, if not the longest serving councillor here with us tonight, and on account of his experience of working under several governance structures, I'm sure this committee will be in safe hands under his guidance.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that, please, members?
I'm happy to second this, Steve Hayes. I agree with everything Chris just said. Actually, Phil's a very capable person.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. Are there any other nominations, members? No. So, members, can I take that by assent? Thank you, committee. So, Councillor Gilchrist, the chair is yours. If you'd like to move forward with appointing a vice chair.
Yes, thank you, members. The heavy lifting of the drawing up of the Constitution was done by a range of members in recent months, and I'm grateful for all that they did. Can I seek nominations for the role of Vice Chair, please?
Chair, could I nominate Councillor Jean Robinson, please, from our group? I think Jean will make a great Vice Chair.
Sorry, it's Councillor Wood here. I would like to second that, please.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any other nominations? We have Councillor Robinson proposed and seconded. I hear no other nominations. I'm just watching for hands. I haven't heard any. If that's the case and there are no other nominations, we do not need to have a contest. Are members content? Agree that Councillor Robinson should become the Vice Chair, please. I'll take that by assent unless there are objections registered. I hear or see no other hands or comments. Councillor Jean Robinson welcome to the role of Vice Chair. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank
members,
you.
for all thoughts on that issue. Next item on the agenda is labelled apologies for absence. We had a roll call of members. Have we had the roll call, or are we gone through everything? We've done the roll call of members, and are there any apologies that have been formally notified to us?
Yes, Chair. So Mr. Chris Jones gave his apologies in advance.
Thank you. And there are no others. Right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. McCord. Item 3 on the agenda is members' declaration of interests. Are there any members who wish to make a declaration, please? Please either signal with your hand and speak, or let us know if you have any. Are there any members who have anything to declare? No, I've seen no hands or not heard from anyone. So I take it there are no declarations of interest to the minutes or show that. Item 4 on the agenda is the public and member questions. Have our officers been notified by last Friday the 20th, please?
No, Chair.
No, none have been received. And have we received any representations or petitions, or item 4.2?
None, Chair.
Thank you. And are there any questions submitted by members? Item 4.3.
No, Chair.
Right, thanks very much. So that's dealt with item 4. Item 5 is the change in governance arrangements, an update on their implementation. We have a report from Mr. Steve Fox. I take it that members have worked through it, but are there any introductory comments an officer would like to make to direct us to any particular points? We are asked to consider and comment on the report and nominate members for the governance working group. There are 1 or 2 issues raised in the report, and therefore, if officers want to highlight those, there are a number of issues flagged up in paragraphs. I'll get the right one for you. At the end of 3.3, before it turns into 4.0, there are a number of issues raised that might be discussed by the working group, and we're asked if we'd like to identify any further issues. So, as an officer, just want to highlight things, please?
Yes, Chair. If I begin, Steve will be able to pick up any comments. So we're now at a point, we've had just the 1 cycle of meetings. And so we are beginning to see where the stresses and strains lie in the system and what we might need to do about it. Some of that is training, some of that will be for considerable review once we go a little further into the cycles. What you do have before you is those matters which were left by the previous committee. As you all know, we went at rewriting the Constitution at quite a speed, and there were areas which the members noted that required some further work. So they're there. There were also the previous chair, Councillor Cox, asked for comments, and those comments are also there in some bullet points just before you get to paragraph 4. And indeed, we as officers are now collecting some of those points. So it is getting to that time when you'll want to sit down and go, well, what are the major stresses and strains to alert for change for next year? And clearly that's something that you'd want to give some thought to within a member working group. So thus the request for names. Just to add for myself, what was quite interesting, which I'll feed into the governance working group, is I spent a little time today with Sheffield City Council, who are going into a referendum on whether or not to move to a committee system, and actually coming at it for a new set of members and saying this is the process that Wirral went through, and the pinch points for the council. I think was useful to them, but it was actually also very useful for me to be able to rehearse those, and I'll share those with the group when we get there. Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Steve?
Mr. Fox?
Thank you, Phil. Just two issues, really. Just to draw to members' attention, under section 3.1, I give a brief analysis of the way we've set up in terms of arranging briefings for committees. One of the things that's become abundantly clear as we've gone into the committee cycle in the new programme is the amount of time or the demand on members' time in terms of briefing sessions associated with committee meetings. I think that's a result of remote meetings, but as much as gearing up as we move into the new system. So an update from the report at the moment is P&R have already agreed to merge their two briefing sessions into one longer one, sort of a part A and a part B. And when this issue was discussed with group leaders, I think it was last week, they agreed that whilst that might work for P&R and we're going to monitor that, they thought it would be good to refer it to each of the individual 7 policy committees so that they could make a decision as a committee as to how they want their briefings to work in future. So that's something we're going to monitor and I'll report back. The other thing that I wanted to personally highlight is under section 3.2, the training update. When we changed governance arrangements, it was a key element of the project plan. And you know, I'm pleased to say that we did invest a lot of time and energy in both training for officers and members. It's a project that's ongoing. You know, we're planning training sessions at the moment for colleagues throughout the council in December, and as recently as Monday, the member learning and development group met to discuss a number of issues, but one of the key ones that we spent some time on was the member one-to-one sessions that took place over the summer. And that member learning development group has tasked me with going away and doing some work in terms of developing the offer for members in the longer term in respect to learning and development opportunities, but also to review the new member induction that we run in post-election in May of most years. But also then the final element is we'll be launching in the very near future a new member portal to replace Cllr.net, and there's a piece of work to do in terms of training for members and making sure that when that does launch, it launches with the best opportunity to succeed. I'll leave it there, Councillor. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much. Could I suggest, in terms of looking at this item, we try and do it in bite-sized chunks? Section 3.1 deals with the issue of briefings and agenda meetings. I'm happy to hear the views of members on this, but as has been discussed, it looks as though it's appropriate for each of the committees to make their own decisions on that without an input from us directing them one way or the other. Are members content that each of the committees should proceed in that way? I'm not hearing anything, but I'll give it a moment to in case there's any comments on that. Any members want to comment, or are we content that the committees make their decisions on that aspect?
Happy with that, Phil.
Sorry, I misheard. Sorry.
Happy with that, Phil.
Happy with that. So we're leaving that to the committees, and we'll no doubt hear in due course what they decide to do. The second thing that crops up, it was in 3.3, there was a list there of the areas of the Constitution that are outstanding, that work's carrying on at the time of this report. So it's probably wise that we should note those as work in progress and expect information and reviews on those in due time. So if members are on the same page as I am, they accept that that's a work in progress and look forward to hearing about those issues. No one's commenting, but is that all right? Jean, I saw your hand flash up, please.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, please, Chair. Could I just ask, because some of them do say in due course, could we possibly have a bit more detail? Because I know obviously there's a short time before the sort of the next year comes in, but will some of those be before we go to the AGM in next May,
Right.
For example, the Constitution?
Well, thanks very much. I wonder if officers would like to perhaps help us with that one about time scales. Code of conduct is a separate item. Financial regulations, ideally, would get in place before.
Sorry, I think it cut out. Sorry, Phil.
Yes. So, Mr. McCourt, do you have a timescale for some of these things? We're looking at 3.3.
Yes, the only one I can give you a timescale on is the whistleblowing policy, because I know that was quite near completion. The others I wouldn't want to push, because the officers involved in them are also involved in budget and COVID matters, and so I wouldn't want to put undue pressure on them by fixing them to a timescale. All of these documents are workable, they just could be improved. And of course, something that will feed directly into contract procedure rules is what happens after we leave the EU. There is a course I'm down to do some learning on. The contract, sorry, the procurement regulations are still in force, and there is just another slight mechanism. The last I understand is that those procurement regulations, the government has no intention of changing in the short term, but it's something we'd quite like to see, because that would have quite an impact if they did. So both of those financial regs and contract procedure rules need substantial work, and as I say, I wouldn't wish to put undue pressure on those officers who are off doing other things at the moment, but they're workable documents at the moment. The others are something that we would like to have in place, both the whistleblowing policy and certainly outside bodies is something we'd like to discuss with the working group, because we would like that clarified and corrected in time for next year's annual meeting.
Right. Well, thank you for that. As I understand it then, we're the work in progress. We take note of what you said about timescales and look forward to them being presented to the appropriate meetings at the right time. Our members happy with that so far. We move on. I'll move on to looking at the issue of members to be nominated to the governance working group. Can we perhaps just check on the size of that, please, Mr. McCourt, and how proportionality rules might apply or not?
So, Chair, there are no proportionality rules to apply, because this is a working group. What I can tell you is last time the member working group was a member from each of the groups represented on the council, plus an open invitation to the group leaders. And at the time, an independent person wasn't invited, because of course that's principally about code of conduct matters, but that option is always available to you. So that's if you were to continue as you did before, that would be 5+ invite to other group leaders.
Right. So, given the size, are you hoping that members will discuss who's going to do it within their groups and notify you very quickly, rather than just reach a decision on members tonight? Members can look at that and decide.
I'm quite comfortable, Chair, if the resolution of tonight was that the groups just inform me in due course.
Right. And in terms of trying to get meetings going, is it best for due course to be within the next week or so?
As soon as we can, Chair. Yes.
Right, thanks very much. Are members content with that? I'm not seeing any hands.
Yes,
Chair.
Yes.
Yes, content. Right, thanks very much. And a point was raised about the independent members might wish to join. They could be invited, I think you said, Mr. McCourt. Can our independent members consider that and let officers know if they wish to attend those meetings?
Yes, Chair, we can do that.
I'll leave you to work on that. And a fourth arm of this was just before 4.0 in the report, asking members to identify any further issues they would like the working group to consider. Do those need to be flagged up now, or are members still reflecting on them, in which case, two aspects, will they communicate those to officers? Jean, you've got a hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just to ask, the notions and motions. I know there's a great massive amount of detail, obviously, in the Constitution of full council. However, there's been some conversation recently about notion and motions coming to committees, either by members that are sitting on the committees and or members bringing them to committees. So I wondered if obviously there can be a bit more clarity. I know, Phil, you've mentioned in the past, but I think it's still a bit confusing. That might be something that might be good for the working groups to consider.
Yes, that's been flagged up. I'm sure any member can flag something up and the working group should look at it. There are no particular problems with that I'm aware of. I suppose the purpose was that the committees have their work programme. There was a plea at one time not to put too much on committee agendas because of workloads and offices in the COVID situation, but that didn't rule out members doing it. Have you got any comments you'd like to make on that aspect, Mr McCourt?
No, Chair. I think that's best left for the working group beyond to say that there has been some discussion and it could probably do with some clarity, as could raised separately have been some questions around terms of reference of committees which will be fleshed out in the next few days. Members, any member of the council is quite happy to we're quite happy that any member of the council rather lets us know where they feel there might be an issue or problem, and we'll feed that into the working group.
Right. How would that be communicated to members, Mr McCall? Would you send a message to members saying this has been discussed, and would they kindly let you know of things, or would be left?
If a member lets Steve or I know that they have an issue or a question, if it's something that's a straight question that we can answer, we'll answer it directly. If it's an issue that requires some debate and thought, then we will feed it into the working group's agenda.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, there were 6 bullet points on that section, and the Councillor Jean Robinson has suggested that additional item. And so the original recommendation was that we were invited to consider and comment on the report and nominate members to sit on the governance working group. We've considered the report, we've got the process for nomination in hand, and members will ensure that if there are other items to be looked at by the working group, they'll be notified to officers. So would that cover everything? I'm not seeing any hands, but general assent to that, if that's all right. Right, so that deals with agenda item 5. Item 6 is the remote meetings update. And again, this report comes in the name of Steve Fox. Are you speaking to it, Steve, briefly? Take it that all members have read it anyway, but anything you wish to highlight?
I will do, if you don't mind, Chair.
Yep.
There's two key elements or purposes to the report. One is obviously an update, but there is a specific ask in there in respect to Standing Order 11.1, which I'll come to in a moment. Mm-hmm. But just to sort of position where we are for members, we've obviously embarked upon a full committee programme since the annual meeting on the 28th of September. We are through the first cycle and on our way into the second at the moment. But just to say that during the first lockdown or the first period of lockdown, we did actually run and continue to run a number of meetings, particularly the quasi-judicial ones, the decision-making ones such as planning, licensing and others, and they're listed in in my report. But the upshot is, as of when I wrote the report a few weeks ago, we've successfully delivered on 50 plus of these type of remote meetings now. One of the things I'm quite proud of and that I would like to promote for members is that during May and June, colleagues in my team were able to also successfully run something like 408 individual admission appeals, which I am particularly proud of. Just a commentary from me, I suppose, in terms of how things have gone and how they feel from an officer perspective. It's definitely been challenging. That comes as no surprise. The speed at which we shifted from the conventional meeting in a committee room into the remote meeting world was fraught with problems, but I'd like to think on the whole it's been successful. We're at a point, we got to a point pretty quickly where the vast majority of members were able to participate and be seen and heard, and the vast majority certainly can now participate without any difficulty. We ran a training program on the use of Teams, and I'd like to place on record my thanks to the group office managers in particular, who I know did a lot of work with individual members, as did colleagues in IT. So I'm thankful for that. We did focus and target people who we expected to be committee chairs. So we did a specific chairs training session over the summer and with the Centre for Public Scrutiny, and a lady called Bethan Evans ran a chairs training session. But we also spent some time with individual chairs going through meeting etiquette and the use of Teams, as you have been doing this evening, Chair, bringing members in and out of the debate and taking votes. One of the things that I will always flag up in any opportunity I get is, in a system that is so reliant on the use of technology, it's not been without its problems. And I think when there have been difficulties with any meetings for whatever reason, we've held our hands up and said, you know, it's not a perfect system, but we think it's pretty good. And where we have been able to learn and develop, we have done, and we're in constant discussion with colleagues in IT and Public Eye, who are our software provider. Moving on to section 3.3, this has been one of the key concerns for me personally, as I've seen meetings commence, and that's the engagement of members of the public. So when it's planned, such as planning committee, there's been no real issues. We've been able to bring members of the public into the meeting, on the whole, they've participated with no problems, as we've been able to guide them through the process and spend time discussing it with them. What the Constitution, as currently written, though, does state is that any member of the public can register to speak up to 15 minutes in advance of the meeting, which, I can say from a practical perspective, is fraught with difficulties. And I don't think I need to explain why in detail. But one of the things that I would like to ask members to consider is we do have a deadline for submitting public questions, which is at noon, 3 days in advance of the meeting. And if members are, or the committee is agreeable to this, I think that's a good time also for anyone wishing to register to speak or make a statement. The deadlines being the same will obviously bring advantages in terms of understanding the deadline, but it then does build in that buffer, a 2 or 3 day period for colleagues of mine to do the work with members of the public, to hopefully bring them seamlessly into the meeting so that they can make the points and then leave it. So I would ask you, Chair, if you could debate that shortly. The last point I would make is to say we have got an eye on the future. Whilst we've spent a significant amount of time preparing for and ensuring that these meetings can run remotely, I'm mindful that in the not too distant future there's going to be the opportunity for members to meet in a meeting room again, and depending on what the government legislation permits, there might be opportunities for hybrid meetings and such like, as you can see in the House of Commons and other councils are doing at the moment. So we have got an eye on that for the future, Chair, and it's probably something that I would like to report into the governance working group in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll invite comments from members. The key issue flagged up by Mr. Fox is the issue of getting comments, questions at a committee. Standing orders for council also apply to committees. So when members have looked at section 3.3 and 11.1, they have to sort of think it applies to committees as well as council. Certainly, I understand there was a practical problem with Policy and Resources Committee over a particular site that was being considered, and I understand the difficulties with that. I also can appreciate that we're working under this system, but of course, if we were to return, as you hinted, to meeting rooms, we could certainly try and make sure that that works better. The difficulty, I think, for officers is seeing that Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Bloggs or Mr. Smith, whoever they might be applying, are the people who want to address the committee and can be appropriately called in by a chair at the right moment. But the members may have experienced this, so I'm going to invite members' comments, please. The purpose is to help the public rather than rule them out, of course. And we're looking for a practical way of introducing the public into the meetings that works and the chair can manage. Any chair can manage. Thank you very much. Members' comments, please. I'm looking for hands. One of the problems with the screen with 9 members on is you can't see everyone else, but I can see a hand.
Councillor Williams, Chair.
Yes, yeah. Councillor Williams. Not in his train in that picture, but with us again. Thanks for. Councillor Williams.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I agree with what Mr. Fox says about the practicality of the 15-minute deadline. I think that's too much, and I would certainly agree to keeping it in line with the previous one, so they're both the same.
Thank you. Any other members, please? Councillor Jean Robinson. Jean.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Steve, as I said, on the fabulous work, especially the appeals. I thought that was really exceptional. Could I just ask a quick question? I agree with, obviously, the Chair and also what Steve said, but could I just ask how many members of the public have actually tried to use that 15 minutes to get into any of the committees? Do you happen to know? Is it many?
Not many, if I'm honest, Councillor. I think we're coming. The experience I'm coming from is the fact that there have been instances where we've struggled when the 15-minute issue hasn't been an issue, if that makes sense. So yeah. I just want to ensure that insofar as I possibly can, that we can make it a seamless opportunity for members of the public to participate. And I think we just need to build in that day or so that my team can talk them through it. And yeah, I think goes without saying, from my perspective, 5:45, doesn't afford us that opportunity, or 1/4 the hour. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
I've seen a hand from Councillor Janette Williamson. Janette, do you want to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm in agreement with my colleagues, and from a Chair's perspective as well, I think this makes sense. Are we looking to agree the recommendations then to go to the next full council? Is that what you're asking us to do, Chair?
It does say in the recommendation, recommend to council, so it would go as a formal thing from us.
If you approve it tonight, Councillor, we'll put it on the council summons for Friday as a recommendation from this committee.
Yeah, I think I do agree. We should just be consistent with both the public statement and public questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members wishing to speak? I've got CC there, so I'm just trying to check that. I've got CC. Sorry.
Councillor Cooke.
Oh, thanks very much. Thank you. Sorry. Yes.
Okay, thanks there. Yeah. Rising out of that, because there have been so few members of the public, asking to speak at various committee meetings, it strikes me that perhaps the council needs to do a little bit more work in terms of, making the residents at large aware of this facility. And I was just wondering what sort of channels have been used, to inform the public about this facility, really.
Nothing. What I would say, nothing that targets this specific opportunity, but we have done a lot of promotional work on the council's new constitution and moving towards the committee system. But I'll take that comment as a takeaway for me, Councillor Cooke.
Thanks.
I'll give you some more thought. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other members? I'm looking for hands. I've not seen any. No other members. I think from what we've heard, we were asked to consider and comment on the report, and I think that members in general really appreciate the work that has been undertaken to introduce the new system, set it up and get it operating as well as it has. So I think the committee would wish to make that comment. The second aspect we're asked to look at was this question on 11.1, and a number of points were raised. One, the practicality, and secondly, the question advising the public of their rights that were raised by Councillor Cooke. So if we recommend to council that in respect of Standing Order 11.1, the deadline for the public registering to speak be brought forward to no later than the midday 3 working days before the day of the meeting, in line with the deadline for the submission of public questions, that's what's in the recommendation. But I think from what's been said, we also request officers to ensure that provision is made known to members of the public by appropriate means. So if that's acceptable to members, can I hear if members assent to what's been said with that additional point that's been raised by Councillor Cooke and added by myself?
Sorry, Chair, because it's a recommendation, can I have a proposer and seconder recorded, please?
Can I propose it from the Chair then? Thank you, Mr McCourt, for your guidance.
Second it.
Several people called out wishing to second. I think Councillor Williams, can we say you were first, if that doesn't upset any of the members? You had your picture on, so I saw you. So proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Steve Williams. Can I see members do we need a formal vote on this, Mr McCourt?
No, Chair, by assent is fine.
Right. So I'm taking it by assent, and are members agreeable to that by assent, please? I'll listen out, but I'm looking for anything to the contrary.
Yes.
No one.
Agreed.
Everyone's agreed. Lots of
Agreed.
shouts of agreed.
Agreed.
No one to the contrary. No one to the contrary. So that's been agreed and will go as a recommendation to council. Thanks very much. So we've dealt with the remote meetings update, and number 7 is the preparation of the model code of conduct. And that includes papers from our officers plus supplements from the local government association. So who would like to take us through this, please? Mr. McCall.
If I may, Chair, this
Yep.
is whilst a long report is relatively short in its impact. Part of it is the timing, because your committee this evening comes shortly before the due publication of the Code of Conduct. So it really is to alert the world that the model Code of Conduct from the LGA should be due out on the 3rd of December. Members of this committee fed into that consultative process, as did those of us as officers who are involved in this area. There have been a number of changes, as I understand. The LGA have heard what has been said, particularly around the move from respect to civility and a number of other areas, but I don't have any more information than that. So we do await that model code of conduct. It is a model as opposed to a fixed requirement, as was previously the case. So it is for this committee to consider what comes out and see if it's right for you. Alongside this have been ongoing conversations with our colleagues across the Liverpool City region, both in terms of moving towards a shared code of conduct, not least because members of combined authorities will also be subject to codes of conduct from those authorities, and it will be helpful to one and all if a single member had a single code of conduct, even when wearing several hats. And indeed, to support each other, we would also be looking to move towards a shared process of investigation and the protocol of how that's dealt with. And I did put forward our process as a model, in given how much work you as members put into it over the past couple of years. So it's predominantly to update you to what is very shortly to come, and you may want to keep your eye open on the announcements from the LGA. Thank you, Chair.
So to help my understanding, and I'm sure other members, Mr. McCourt, the LGA one, whilst we have our own in operation, which we're familiar with, and as you mentioned, took quite a bit of work to produce, does the LGA one somehow overtake ours, override it, or do we still have our own in place until we've taken the two and looked at them alongside each other and changed our procedures? Where do we stand on that?
So, Chair, yours remains in place. It was due in any event for review, and the discussions previously is that the committee here would try and review that so that it, alongside others in the city regions, there was something like a common version. The code of conduct that the council has was updated in September. That's predominantly because there was a technical error within the old code of conduct where there was some wording that was undefined and confusing, so that gap was plugged. That came through the member governance working group and into the constitution that was agreed in September. So you now have a corrected code of conduct, but it is predominantly the one that you've been running with for quite some time now. So a step in this process is to review that code of conduct, as you say, alongside firstly whatever comes out of the LGA, and then secondly, if there's any discussion across the Liverpool City region of either adopting something else or a variation of that.
No, thank you. I've just asked if our independent members have any comments they'd like to make at this point. The code of conduct can mean that independent members are called to panels, and therefore what's judging members or considering members against is very much what we have before us and what's being adopted by the LGA. But either Professor Jones or Grahame might want to just say a word or two. I might have caught you on the hop, mind you. So.
I don't know whether Professor Jones wants to say something. I simply say that I like the sound of a coordinated approach, and I like the sound of a consistent approach, which would bring more equity to the whole situation.
Thank you. Thanks, Grahame. Professor Jones? I wondered, we had trouble connecting with Professor Jones earlier on. Are we able to tell if Professor Jones does wish to contribute? I haven't got a little symbol for him, I believe. Right. In the light of the technical delay, I'll ask members if they wish to comment on the report that we've got before us. Janette.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's just a quick comment really on the report. You know, it's really, really interesting, and I'm so supportive of the Code of Conduct being, reviewed and will watch with interest. I have a few some major concerns, particularly around the quality of the public and political debate. I think it has deteriorated quite a lot over the past few years, and I think that the some of the things that I read online, both from politicians but also residents who I think have been possibly misled by what some politicians report, I think it's just added to a bit of a breakdown in dialogue we've got with our residents as politicians, and I'm really all for improving that one. And on the flip side of that, I think there is an issue for me around duty of care, and that should extend to councillors, because what I feel that perhaps there's certainly an area of work to be done there around, we have mechanisms in place to deal with council employees, but councillors are that group of people that don't quite fit into that category, and the way we're perceived and sometimes the way we're treated can leave a lot to be desired. So I absolutely welcome a thorough overhauling of the Code of Conduct, and I agree with the previous speaker about a consistency across the board. Really welcome this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. I'm told by officers that Professor Jones' microphone is muted. I'm working on the basis that Professor Jones can hear us. I'm not sure if officers are able to contact him to offer any assistance in case he were wish to contribute. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this item, please? I've not seen any hands. In the recommendation, we were asked to note the report, and as we've heard from officers, we also been appraised of progress with the LGA code, and I think we ought to welcome the development of the LGA code and look to the outcome of discussions on it, and also work with other local authorities across the Liverpool City region in the interests of transparency and consistency. Is that acceptable to members? I'll ask by assent, if I may.
Agree.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
Right. Thank you very much. Sorry we haven't been able to hear from Professor Jones. I don't know if any officers are able to speak with him to sort out any technical issues. Agenda item 8 is a summary of standards complaints, and the report has an appendix, and it came in the name of Vicky Shaw. So, Ms. Shaw, are you able to speak to it?
I am, yes, Chair.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, members. Members will be aware that under the Localism Act, the local authority has to have arrangements in place to deal with any complaints that are received in respect of members' conduct. And this report provides a summary of the standards complaints received between the 31st of October 2019 and the 31st of October 2020. The ethical framework requires complaints to be dealt with in a confidential manner, and therefore it's not possible to provide extensive details in respect of each complaint. However, members will see from the report there has been a total of 5 complaints in respect of the conduct of 5 members. The complaints were received from 5 different complainants. There were 2 complaints raised by members against other members. No complaints received between October 2019 and October 2020 are still ongoing, and none of the complaints received were referred for a formal investigation. The administration of standards complaints clearly should be dealt with as efficiently as possible to ensure that matters are concluded quickly and there is closure of issues secured for both the complainant and the subject member involved. Unfortunately, the current COVID-19 pandemic has impacted on capacity to deal with complaints, and it has led to a failure to deal with matters in accordance with the detailed timescales contained within the protocol for the various stages of the process. However, the overarching timescale contained within the protocol for dealing with complaints within 6 months has not been breached, and as members will see, none of the complaints have taken longer than 3 months to deal with. So members are asked to note the summary of standards complaints as set out in the Appendix 1 to the report. And if members have any complaints, any comments, I will do my best or any questions, I will do my best to answer those.
Right. Ms. Shaw has invited members to ask make any comments or ask any questions. Are there any members who wish to do so, please? I'm looking for hands. I've not seen any so far. Can I take it that in the light of the explanation offered that members are content to note this report then? Shall I take that by assent?
Agreed, yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Take that by assent that members are content to note that. Thank you, Ms. Shaw, for that report. And we're going to move on to item 9, which is establishing the Standards Panel and Standards Appeal Panel. There are recommendations that are on my page 45. That we need to take a formal decision to establish it, that we need to supply and confirm the names of members, and also highlight that in clause 3 then there can be arrangements for confirming another representative member. Can I just take guidance, please, Mr. McCourt, on the numbers on this? I happen to have sat on the panel in the past. Do you have advice on that? Might have been when there were fewer, perhaps shall we say, the grouping on the council was different. So there is some advice on numbers, please.
So, Chair, each individual panel would be between 3 and 5 members. The reason we say that, as previously, is so that if someone can't attend, there will always be a stand-in, so that allows for that flexibility. So it's formally establishing those, and then in effect a list of names from each of the groups in kind of priority order, because there may be a need for a flurry of these panels to be called, where in reality there's only a few, but we do, in the same way that we do for the licensing committee and panel, make provision for more than one panel of more than one makeup, depending upon the complaints and conflicts of interest and so forth. So it's a list of names in priority order that we can then pick from should the need arise.
Yes, thank you, Mr. McCourt. Page 50 gives an idea of size of panels. Are there any particular training needs that need to, if a member were to serve on it, they could seek advice, because there is actually a sort of code, a procedure laid out for meetings that should help anyway. I think my wife's smoke alarm's gone off, but that's the cooking. I'm sorry about that. Mr. McCourt, you're all right? You're still with us? I'm just checking on what, and if a panel is called, members will be given all details of the procedure and so on.
Yes, Chair. Yes. Sorry, I couldn't pick that up the first time.
Right.
So.
Sorry. And the second thing is, how quickly would officers need the names? Do they have to be put in very quickly for the next council, or is it a procedural thing that may not need council?
No, it's a procedural matter that falls completely within the remit of this committee, Chair.
Right. Thank you. So ideally, in a reasonable period, not sitting on it. Thank you very much.
before we need one. Let's put it like that.
Thank you, Mr. McCourt. Yeah. All right. Page 45 has the 3 recommendations before us, which I'm happy to move from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Members are turning to page 45 and quickly looking at it, probably.
Yeah, seconded, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Williams has seconded. So, shall I take that by assent? And I'm not, see if any members disagree with it, or they're content to do that by assent, please.
Agree.
Yep. So, from what I've heard, without saying, no hands have appeared, members are happy to do that by assent. Thank you very much. Now, according to the agenda, we had 9 items. We didn't have, or don't have any, there isn't a formal notification of other business as I understand it. I've not been approached by anyone about any other matter, and we wouldn't be able to publish it in time to alert the public anyway. So I believe we've concluded the agenda tonight. Is that the case, Mr. McCourt?
It is, Chair, yes. So thank you, members.
Right. So,
Councillor Gilchrist, it's Councillor Wood here. It's just I should have probably raised it a little bit earlier, but I thought I'd wait till the end of the meeting because it moved on. It was with regard to terms of reference for Regen and the local plan, because there's still some upset as to what is happening there. It seems unnecessary, and it doesn't seem to make much logic that matters relating to this, to the local plan, go to Regen as a committee, and it needs ironing out. And I don't know whether it's something that needs to be discussed here within this meeting or whether it's something for the workshop, but it's timescales is what I'm concerned about as well. And it just seems like a bureaucratic layer to have it go through Regen.
right. I don't think without detail before us tonight, we can take the matter now anyway.
Yes, Chair.
Right.
This will be something that would be picked up. So in that earlier item this evening, where we invited members to put forward issues that the member working group should look at and we as officers should consider, so that this would be one of those. So if Councillor Wood would kindly raise that with us outside of here, we will pick it up and feed it into the governance working group, Chair. Pick it up and feed it into the governance working group, Chair.
No.
Thank you. My apologies, I didn't put it in before. I'm having problems getting things loaded, but thank you very much.
Oh, right. Thank you. I'm always anxious. Thank you. I'm always anxious because of delays in time in transmitting questions to the ether to get to members, trying to leave a space for a member to press the buttons and get in. If members find delays or difficulty with transmission or getting connected or getting in touch, then it's very wise for us to perhaps leave a pause after each item's call to make sure that everyone's able to contribute. I'm trying to do that, and I hope that that's worked. Can I thank members for their help this evening and officers for the detailed reports they provided, and look forward to a constructive remainder of the municipal year, addressing any issues that have been flagged up or need attention. Thank you very much.